our last class, we talked about what a program is. And what I shared is that a program has to have an organized collection of activities that are aiming to reach certain objectives. And that the actual activities, which are services, are planned actions designed to solve specific problems. But in that, right, because you're designing a specific services to solve specific problems, the aim is to make sure that it's impacting the individuals who participate in the program itself. What I also highlighted is that programs also have to have staff, and they have to obviously have budgets, solid budgets, to be able to support staff in the running of the program. They also have to be able to have a program identity, that is that individuals in the community know about the program alongside potential organizations that will refer individuals to the program. And so it's a well-known program. I highlighted that Big Brothers and Big Sisters is an actual program that many of us know about, but also when we think about the Assertive Community Treatment Program, ACT, that's another program that many know and are aware about. So that's what a program identity is really around. But I highlighted a program also has to have a service philosophy, right? Who does it actually aim to serve? And how does it actually approach its service? It's also grounded in theory. There has to be some foundational theory that's guiding the program, specifically because it has located a particular issue. And so what theory allows us to do is, given the issue, if we actually provide interventions within programs, what are the sets of mechanisms of change that we actually expect to see that are connected through to the intervention itself. Further, programs also should have a systematic way to empirically evaluate its services. And so, for example, ACT has historically had a process around how they continuously evaluate the services they offer, specifically to communities and that actually are diagnosed with severe chronic mental health conditions such as bipolar and schizophrenia. So on an ongoing basis, they're always doing evaluations to determine, is their approach actually working for the community that they're servicing? And the last piece is around programs should have evidence-based research to really inform that program, right? So for ACT, when it first started as a pilot, they were conducting research. The ways that ACT has been able to expand over the years has been because of the ongoing research that has been implemented around ACT. So the layers that we're aiming to continue to add today are now around thinking about differentiating between evaluation research and program evaluation and what they actually aim to do, right? And so last time we were together, I highlighted that they do two somewhat different things, and they may sound similar, but they're doing two different things in the ways that they actually approach evaluation. So evaluation research in particularly is systematically examining the effectiveness of the programs and social intervention programs as a whole to determine how successful and effective they actually are, right? So it's looking at all programs as a whole that are in a particular area, right? So I've spoken about early childhood programs, right? And so what's partly happened with early childhood programs is that there have been many evaluations that have been conducted, whether it's been on Head Start, whether it's been on the child parenting centers, whether it's been in the high scope program, to determine how effective are the actual programs themselves. Oftentimes, the focus of evaluation research asks specific questions that are about overall social intervention programs, not one specific program as a whole. So for example, questions that might be asked in evaluation research may include what is it about the program or its effect that justifies new, expanded, or modified social programs, right? So it's beginning to actually reveal how is it that we're going to expand or modify specific social programs based on what we're actually learning as a whole. But we're also interested in knowing what is the appropriate target population for the intervention itself, right? So I started highlighting target populations last time we were together, mainly because what I shared was that programs are very specific around who they're actually targeting. They're not really targeting everybody as a whole. They have specific criterias, right? Which adds a layer to, is there a particular intervention reaching its target population, right? This begins to really speak, right? Is the intervention actually reaching the intended target population? Whether it is the ways that it's recruiting the actual clients and consumers, whether it is now that they have been recruited, do consumers and clients stay in the program as a whole? That then now once we have consumers in the program, right, we're interested in knowing, are the actual interventions within the program being implemented well? So as intended as a whole. And then it asks the next layers of question around, are the intended services actually being provided, right? So if it is an outpatient mental health program, are the mental health services within the program actually being provided with the level of dosage that it was intended to actually provide? Which then brings us to this layer around, is the intervention effective in attaining the desired goals or benefits, right? So what I shared, right, whatever interventions exist in a program, they have specific sets of goals, but it ultimately has to be benefiting individuals who come to the program themselves. That then speaks to, we want to know how much is the program actually costing, to then be able to say, is the program cost reasonable in relation to the effectiveness and benefits, right? So this becomes this idea around a cost benefit analysis, right? There's a level of investment that is being inputted into the program. And so what we want to know, is it actually being effective, but is it also benefiting consumers and clients that the program specifically is receiving? And what I want us to think about evaluation research, right? That the questions themselves, the idea of evaluation research is more broader in nature because it's interested in more the level of effectiveness of social programs as a whole in comparison to program evaluation. So last time we were together, I started talking about what program evaluation is, right? And part of what we want to hold around program evaluation is that it aims to systematically assess human service programs for pragmatic reasons, right? Pragmatic reasons are centered around funding and program improvement as a whole, as we're learning from the program itself. Is it actually meeting the needs of the target population, for example? Also, program evaluation should aim to really generate useful and ethically and culturally responsive, valid, and reliable data to inform decision-making about individuals, but also the program as a whole, right? It is the actual data that should be informing what decisions we're going to make around improving the program, enhancing the program, or expanding the program as a whole. And the last thing I'd like to add around program evaluation is that research as a whole in general, right, for knowledge base and evaluation differ in the way that the data is actually utilized, right? Here in program evaluation, we're using the data to actually inform decision-making processes around the program itself or individuals, right? And what I highlighted was it's around really improving the program to make sure it's benefiting communities, individuals, children, families, and adolescents who are within the program. It's also informing, will we expand the program, or will it remain as it is? Similarly to research, though, we do start with a problem in a specific question that we're actually asking in program evaluation about the program. And so the pieces I want us to think about why program evaluation is actually important is that part of it, it's the realness around accountability to funding sources, right? Whether it is nonprofit sectors that are funding programs, whether it is local, state, or federal government that are funding programs, they want to know if the program is actually working or not. Because we also know that there's levels of competition for resources, right? And so the program funders want to know, is there a better program that exists that can provide services for less cost? And so that's why holding that program evaluation is central to programs, and that is the work that we have to be intentional around how on an ongoing basis we will actually be evaluating the program. That's one piece, right? But the next layer, as I just highlighted, was we want to be able to improve a program based on the data itself, so that the program can become better and it can be more productive. And it also opens the door around creating new interventions based on what we actually learn from conducting the evaluation in programs. So the pieces I want us to think about, right, when we're thinking about a program evaluation questions is program evaluation questions that we're thinking about should be able to focus on program performance that are most appropriate and realistic for the program and are going to be very important for key decision makers and stakeholders, right? And so oftentimes what may happen is that when we're thinking about performance of a program and determining what successful programs are, what unsuccessful programs are, or even what effective programs are, we have to be realistic in considering what is realistic for the services that the program actually offers, and holding at the same time, how will this way to assess the performance of the program really support key decision makers and stakeholders of the program. So to that end, we're thinking about what are the specific designs of data collection procedures that we will have to develop to provide meaningful information about that area of performance, right? Is it going to actually require more of a mixed methods approach? Are we going to just rely on a quantitative approach, right? Are we going to rely on a qualitative approach to generate meaningful information about how the program is actually doing? And the last piece around thinking about program evaluation questions is the questions themselves should actually be answerable, right? They have to have a level of specificity so we are able to actually answer the specific questions that we're asking in program evaluation. They should also involve levels of performance dimensions that are very specific, they're concrete and practical and measurable, because that's what's going to actually give us some meaningful information around what is the status of the actual program itself, right? And so I want us to begin to kind of think about, right, what are those indicators of program performance that we have to be thinking about that are going to deem the program as successful or unsuccessful, and what are the ways that we're going to collect data to demonstrate the level of success or lack of success in the program itself, and how will we be intentional around being specific, concrete, and practical, and making sure that the ways that we are approaching, the ways that we want to answer the question are measurable in nature as a whole. So there's a few ways that we want to think about the program evaluation process as a whole. And so what you begin to see here is the program evaluation process follows somewhat of a similar sequence as when we're doing research study for the purposes of knowledge base, right? And so the first thing that we're actually thinking about is we want to make sure that we're developing some questions, right? And it speaks to, we have to develop those questions that are answerable in nature. So they require a level of specificity, right? They can't be so broad in nature that then we're not going to be able to answer them. Then we want to be able to kind of select a specific design how we're actually going to think about answering the questions, to then specify variables that we're actually going to measure. And the variables potentially being, right, so if we are interested, say, in an after-school program, what are the variables that we're going to think about to assess the effectiveness of the after-school program itself, right? Are we going to be looking at academic outcomes? For example, whether it's academic achievement, right? Do we see an increase in grades as a result of the program, for example? So we're locating what are the variables that we're most interested in. Then we're going to identify who is going to be part of that program evaluation process, right? We're going to select the participants for the program evaluation. We're going to select data collection methods, which oftentimes is, do we go with surveys? Are we going to think about focus groups? Are we going to think about interviews? Are we going to think about observations? What is going to be the approach around how we're going to collect the data that is very much, again, connected to the question we're trying to answer, but also the design itself, and obviously the variables that we're measuring, all right? Then we're going to analyze the data once we've collected the data, and we're going to write and disseminate the report. So we're looking at the cycle of how program evaluation actually occurs as a whole. But the most critical piece here is, what is the most important question that we need to ask connected to the program to evaluate the program. So there's some questions that we oftentimes are asking in program evaluation based on where we are in the process of, or the phases of program evaluation, right? And so if we're thinking about needs assessment, right? During the phase around needs assessment, we are mostly thinking about what are the needs of the actual population, right? And the way that that oftentimes gets derived is that we know that there's an actual social issue, and we know there's been documentation of different sources of data that tell us that this is a serious social issue. And so as we're coming together to really think about how are we going to address the social issue, the first question we want to be able to ask is, what are the needs of the population that is being impacted by a specific social issue? And what are then the services that will be needed to address that social issue, right? When we're in this area around what we refer to more formative evaluation, we're really interested in the part around how we will conceptualize the program or design the program, right? So how should the program be organized? This is oftentimes that early stage where we know we're gonna develop a program, right? And in that context, we wanna be able to ask those critical questions around how should the program be organized? And in there, we're thinking about how will the program identify, recruit, and sustain the intended clientele of the program that is actually being designed. Because when we're getting more into the aspects of more process evaluation, the questions that we're most interested in asking at this point are the intended services being delivered to the intended persons, right? So there are now services that we have in place, And are the individuals now within the program actually receiving the actual services that we laid out for the program? And we also want to know at this point, are the clients within the program actually satisfied with the services that are being offered? As we add layers now, right? Now we want to know, is the program actually impacting the individuals who are participating in the program itself, right? So here is when we want to ask questions around, do the services have beneficial effects for those receiving the actual services, right? And what that translates into, are individuals shifting in specific areas where there was an area of concern, right? Do we see skill development? Do we see decreases in levels of maladjustment, for example, right? And the layer that we're adding to this are the outcomes, goals, and objectives being reached of the program, right? As a whole, because when we're now beginning to think about are the program costs and efficiency ones that are more around efficiency assessment, right? So in this context, what we're beginning to ask is the cost reasonable in relation to the magnitude of the benefits, right? But this again is very much specific to this one program, right? Unlike what I said earlier, evaluation research is looking at social programs as a whole. This right here is just looking at one specific program. So the next layer I want us to think about, which is what you also learned from Research One, is that there are ethical guidelines that we are still following in program evaluation. And the most important piece is knowing that individuals who participate in program evaluations must be volunteers, right? We are not coercing them. They agree to participate because they want to participate. We're also letting them know that there are risks and discomfort and benefits of participating, right? As part of the program evaluation. And what that may be is really around, so if you've never been interviewed, for example, individuals might just be a little bit uncomfortable around questions that are being asked, right? It's not high level risk. That's what I want to kind of highlight, right? It's just those small, more minimal risks, but they have to be informed that there are potential risks that are somewhat connected to discomfort and what the potential benefits would be of participating in the program evaluation. We also have to make sure that we're informing them that no harm will result as a result of participating in the evaluation as a whole, and that we will protect sensitive information that they are sharing with us. That then speaks to how do we differentiate between when we offer anonymity comparison to confidentiality, right? When we're saying that actual survey or study is anonymous, is that we as researchers would not be able to identify those who participated in the study in any way, or by we would not know who is specifically participating in the study, right? So we have no names, we have no addresses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? What differentiates confidentiality is that what we're agreeing to is that we are going to protect potential sensitive information, more specific contact information of individuals who are part of the actual program evaluation, right? That only we will know who they actually are and no one else will know who they actually are, right? But it's confidentiality, right? So what that requires us to do, right, is when we are collecting data, we have to be able to separate out the data that identifies individuals by name, address, etc., and give them an actual unique identification number. But we have to separate out their more demographic data, which is for me name, address, etc., from the actual data itself by giving them a specific, a unique identifying number. So we're not connecting their name to a specific set of data. And the layer to this is that we know that in research one, we also know that we have a responsibility to protect special populations. We know that children are a protected population, that if we're going to engage children or adolescents in any kind of research or in program evaluation, that they have to give assent, and that their parents or their guardians or caregivers have to give consent. We also know that we have a responsibility to protect individuals with diminished mental capacity, individuals who are also incarcerated as well. And oftentimes is we have to also be able to create protective procedures and processes for undocumented populations, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and LGBTQ+A community and participants, and specifically the ways that undocumented populations, BIPOC, and LGBTQ+A communities have been negatively impacted in research, right? So there's already this level of distrust that happens as a result of numerous studies that have been harmful to particular populations, right? Undocumented populations, BIPOC, LGBTQ+A. So that's why we have to be very intentional around how we create protective procedures for the communities I just highlighted. So the next layer I want to be able to begin to add, which is really an introductory place for us to understand the different program evaluation types that we will cover throughout the semester. And I started to alluding to what needs assessments are, formative evaluation, process evaluation, and impact evaluation. So right now, I'm just going to provide just an overview. And as we go through the semester, we will go in a little greater detail. So a needs assessment at a foundational level is really identifying, is there a need for a program? More than anything, there's a social issue, right? And we have data that supports the social issue, data that's been collected, and now we're grappling with, do we actually need an actual program, or can we think about an existing program that's out there and begin to incorporate services into that program based on the need of a particular community? Formative evaluation is that phase where it is a new program and it is the start of an actual program. And what we're most interested in assessing in formative evaluation is what's the information that we're going to be able to generate that's going to help form and stabilize the program as a whole, right? So this is what we're beginning to think about. Okay, how will we recruit the potential participants for the program itself, right? How will we make sure that we maintain participants for the specific program? How do we make sure that we have a robust design for the program that we just developed, right? Because in process evaluation, what we begin to look closer at is, what does the program actually do? How does it actually do it? What are the goals connected to the program? What are the sets of objectives connected to the program? How will we make sure that the program is being implemented as intended? How will we make sure that there's a level of quality that is being implemented in the program itself? Because by the time we get to impact evaluation, we want to know if the program is actually working. What that means, is it actually impacting the individuals within the program itself, right? What I want to be able to say about these program evaluation types is that they're iterative in nature, right? And so if from an actual impact evaluation, I learned that the program is not affecting a good portion of the individuals in the program, I may actually have to reassess. And it may partly be is that I may not have the right services in place. So I may actually return back to needs assessment again to assess, right, do we have the right services? do we have the right targeted communities that could benefit from the program as a whole? So I want us to hold that the actual, again, what I said earlier, right? The data that we're actually collecting and we're using from programs is what's informing our decision making moving forward. So I want to touch a little bit on theory right now. I started mentioning theory a little bit earlier, but the grounding of theory becomes important for numerous reasons, right? So first I want to talk about theory as a whole, right? And so theory as a whole is a tested general proposition, commonly regarded as correct, that can be used as principles of explanation and prediction of a phenomenon, right? So theories as a whole, what theories have allowed us to actually do is that theories are making assumptions around how the world actually operates, right? And so theories oftentimes get tested. When theories get tested, oftentimes, and they get somewhat confirmed, we're able to explain and predict particular phenomenon based on the theory, right? But I want us to hold that the first things that the foundational pieces of theory is that we're making assumptions around how things operate, how systems operate, for example. So if we think about attachment theory, for example, John Bowlby had this assumption that there was a particular way that parents at that point and infants were making a bond, right? We're actually attaching. And so what John Bowlby did was that he actually started observing at that point in history mothers and their infants and the ways that they were actually bonding to each other. So that's when he started kind of seeing patterns that there was ways that at that point mothers and their infants were connecting and attaching to each other. So later on, when Mary Ainsworth joined John Bowlby, and Mary Ainsworth was a student of John Bowlby, she added to what Bowlby was doing the strange situation. And the strange situation being that infant and caregiver were in a small room together, and then a stranger came into the room, and the parent caregiver left the room and left the infant in the room with the stranger. From that that reference point, Mary Ainsworth was able to develop different typologies of attachment, right? But the first thing I want us to think about, right, it started with an assumption. The assumption was tested out, and what attachment theory has offered us, right, it's allowed us to really explain how infants and caregivers develop attachment, and how they may not develop attachment as well, right? But it's allowed us to actually predict certain phenomena as well, right? So we know based on research at this point that some of the atypical attachment patterns are connected to some mental health conditions, right? And so I want us to kind of think about the role that theory will also be the foundation to some of the programs that you're going to actually propose to evaluate. What I want to highlight further with theory is that it allows us to really conceptualize what's also causing a specific problem, right? So that then we're able to generate the interventions that are going to actually create shifts, right? So what are those prospective mechanisms in intervention that are going to address that specific problem, right? So ultimately, it allows us to understand how a program should work, and places to look for indicators of program success as well, right? In that, right, what I highlighted around general theory is that general theory gives us an insight around what are those places that help us understand the potential mechanisms of change that are within the program through interventions that are going to provide the shifts to be impactful for individuals who are part of the program. Because the layer I'm going to add now is this idea around what a program theory is, right? And a program theory sits with the program. But again, right, it's still relying on a set of assumptions as well that we're testing out. Program theory is also known as a logic model. So what a program theory is able to offer us, it creates the structure, the function, and the procedures to attain a program's goals, right? So it's laying out what are the structures that are in place, the actual procedures that are there that is going to help us attain the program goals themselves, right? In that context, what goes into a program theory or a logic model is that it first starts with what are the program resources, which we refer to as inputs that we need to even run the program to begin with, right? What are the resources? We're talking about budgets, we're talking about staff, and obviously individuals who participate in the program. They are a resource to the program, right? If there are no individuals that are part of the program, there is no program, right? And then we think about program activities that are oftentimes the services that the program offers. But with the services that the program offers, there are also a set of outcomes connected to those services, right? Whether it is the number of hours individuals participate in the program itself, right? That is an outcome connected to the services. And then the last piece is around program outcomes, right? How is the program going to have a direct effect on the individuals who are part of the program, right? And it could be short and long term as well. It also is aiming to demonstrate how a program is supposed to work and bring about those intended outcomes as a whole, right? So in a few weeks, we will unpack logic models further, but I wanted to make sure we started with an introduction for you to kind of put a placeholder on what program theory does and what theory as a whole does, because that will be part of the work that we will embark on for our program evaluation proposal. The last piece I'm going to highlight is around program goals, right? Because I want to start talking about program goals to then be able to differentiate program goals from program short and long-term outcomes, right? And so program goals specifically are aiming to change behavior. How will specifically an intervention within the program change a particular behavior, improve as through the program, or what is the program really aiming to accomplish, right? Every program is aiming to accomplish something, but we want to be concrete around what the program is aiming to accomplish, right? Program goals are very broader, which sometimes it seems like, well, wow, it's not realistic. How will a program be able to accomplish that broad program goal? However, what I want us to hold up front is that short and long-term outcomes that we will discuss in a few weeks are more specific in nature. And program goals and short and long-term outcomes are different. They are not the same. They are very much connected, but they are actually not the same, right? So I'm going to give a couple examples around what program goals potentially are. So one example is, this is specifically of a program that is aiming to provide HIV prevention and also care coordination for vulnerable populations. So the program goal here is to provide greater access to linguistically appropriate primary care in HIV prevention, to increase retention and treatment by providing intensive care coordination and ongoing case management. So what I want you to kind of hear here is what are the key pieces that you're hearing around what this program is aiming to accomplish, and thinking about, wow, is this really broad in nature? Is it attainable? Will they be able to accomplish this goal? The next one is a school-based program, and their goal is to improve academic success and work to eliminate mental health and psychosocial barriers that often impede academic success. This is their goal as a program, right? And again, I want us to ask those questions, right? Will they be able to accomplish this goal? Is it too general? And how would they be able to accomplish this goal? So this is an entry point to program goal. And when we're in class together, we'll unpack it a little bit more, because that will be part of the work that you will be doing now that we now have a potential program that we're going to propose to evaluate.